Jay Lucas has to leave right now, like before the season even concludes. It's a championship level Duke basketball team. This is chaos.
You are Locked On Blue Devils, your daily podcast on the Duke Blue Devils. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody. Welcome into another episode of the Locked On Blue Devils podcast. My name is JJ Jackson. So thankful to have you here with us today on Thursday, March 6th, 2025. Locked On Blue Devils is your one-stop shop where we discuss everything going on in the life of Duke athletics. And today's focus, pretty obvious. The news coming out today that Jay Lucas will be the next head basketball coach for the Miami Hurricanes, and Saturday's game for Duke against North Carolina will be his final one on the sidelines. Before the tournament even begins, Jay Lucas is heading off. And I've got to talk about this with our good pals, Kevin Connelly and Jordan Mann, here with us on today's show. A little roundtable discussion that we're set to have here throughout the course of the program today. If you have not done so already, please be sure to follow and subscribe to Locked On Blue Devils for free, wherever it is that you get your podcasts. Be sure to leave us a 5-star rating and written review. Like these videos if you watch the show each and every day on YouTube, and subscribe to our channel. So grateful for all the support that we've got out there in the Locked On Blue Devils community. I love when we're able to get all together on the same page. So bringing them in now, the aforementioned Jordan Mann and Kevin Connelly here with me on the program today. And fellas, Jay Lucas heading off to Miami. Kind of saw this news coming after the news broke prior to Duke's game against Illinois inside Madison Square Garden. But now we find out it's going to be at the conclusion of the regular season before Duke ever gets a chance to go for their national championship hunt. How do we feel about this, Kevin? How's this sitting with you?
You know, I get it just because it's this day and age in college basketball, but like you can't put any blame on Jay Lucas. You can't put any blame on John Shire. You can't put any blame on Miami because they're doing what's best for their own program. I mean, all the blame for this unnecessary drama goes on the NCAA. And the reason he's doing it is because the transfer portal opens on March 24th, the day after, I believe that's the day after the second round of the NCAA tournament. And in this day and age in college basketball, if you want to try to compete at a high level in a power conference at a school like Miami, who has a lot of, you would assume a lot of NIL money, you have to be fully locked in on that. And you can't be trying to game plan for a Sweet 16 or Elite 8 game. And it as tough as that is to say, because this is a Duke team that is the favorite right now to win the national championship, I get it from all parties, but you can't put any blame on anybody else but the NCAA for not having the transfer portal and the offseason begin, say, the Thursday or Friday after the national championship game, just like you see in all professional sports, right? And I don't mean to go along with this, but there's a difference between college sports and professional sports. And I think that's a good thing. I think a lot of people enjoy that. But when you look at, say, the NFL, free agency doesn't start on January 15th when you still have 6 or 8 teams competing for a Super Bowl. And you even saw it this year with Kellen Moore, the Eagles offensive coordinator, had a deal in place already to be the next head coach of the New Orleans Saints, but he couldn't sign that deal or go to the New Orleans Saints because he still had to fulfill his duties with the Philadelphia Eagles. So
that's a great point.
Yeah, that's where I think you kind of look at it. Like I said, I think it's the NCAA's fault, and I think the transfer portal should begin like the Thursday or Friday after the national championship game.
Jordan?
Yeah, I mean, Kevin basically summed it up perfectly. I mean, there's not much more to add to that. It is the NCAA with the portal. Like, it's a problem in college football, but the one hurdle with college football is, well, the second semester starts in the beginning of January, so the portal has to open in December, where there's crossover, there's overlap, which that's fine. But in college basketball, it's not going to hurt you to move the portal to after March Madness, because summer school won't start till after March Madness anyway. So there's no reason why the portal should be open next week, and it is strictly the NCAA at fault, shockingly, because it always seems like they're in the wrong and everything in the sport and college sports. But yeah, Jay Lucas, there's no ill will. Like, it sucks. It's a business at the end of the day. It's a big loss for Duke, but at the end of the day, it's not his fault. It's not anything on him. It is strictly the NCAA and the obligations he has to have now as the head coach of Miami.
Yeah, I mean, that's easy. I mean, obviously, we're happy for him anytime you get a chance to be a head coach. I'm sure this is something that he's been wanting to do for quite some time. He's 36 years old and set to be a head coach for a major conference school like Miami. Like, that's insane and super exciting for him and his family. But also, two things can be true at once, and it sucks from the Duke perspective that this is the position that we're in, that it is a team that's bound for a championship in so many ways, has their best basketball in front of them as they pursue that sixth national championship. And this is our defensive coordinator that we're talking about. And if we are set up in a world where you've got a collision course against Auburn or Alabama, Florida, some of these best teams in the SEC, Houston turning it on as of late, I'd like to have the guy that's kind of been spearheading the defense to get to see this through. And I think for Jay Lucas even, I don't want to speak for him. We'll get to hear his press conference this coming Monday at Miami. But that's got to sting. Like, everybody wants to be a part of a national championship squad. And here you are trying to set yourself up for success at the next job. And you can't even see if this team was going to be able to get a championship that you're just now leaving.
Yeah, I mean, look, he put a lot of work in and he built a foundation with this team defensively. And I think that will be good enough for Duke to bridge the gap of his loss in the postseason in terms of defensive, like with the reactionary, how they're going to guard certain ball screens, how they're going to play certain offenses. I think it's already infiltrated the team to where they know what to do. But yeah, his scouting is going to be missed because his scout has been unbelievable this year. It's been unbelievable, really, his whole career at Duke. But now it's just Dildy and Carrawell and maybe a little Shire. But even then, like, Shire is going to oversee some things, but you got to really rely on your assistant coaches. And now they have double the work in terms of scouts. And you saw that with the Wake Forest game as Dildy, I pointed out on video that it looked like that was his scout, how active he was on the sideline, standing up and pointing and telling guys where to go defensively. And I think you're going to see more of that, obviously, with Jay Lucas now leaving next week.
Yeah, enough people know ball in the staff. We've also got Mike Schrage still as the director of operations for the Duke team, who was on Coach K's staff and then was the Elon head coach. There's tons of people over on the sideline that knew basketball. And maybe that's the big thing, Kevin, is that at the end of the day, if Duke wants to win a championship, Jay Lucas can't do it himself. Like, these players have to go out there. It's obvious, but they've got to be the ones that make the shots, get the stops defensively, and all those things.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the coaches can give you the keys, but then it's up to the players to put the keys in the ignition and start driving the car. You can get the answers to the test, but you still got to write them down on the piece of paper. I can use all the expressions I want to, but I mean, this team is still talented enough. Now, is Jay Lucas the missing piece that this team needs to win a national championship? I don't know if I'd go that far. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a couple of more phone calls over these next 4 or 5 weeks to a different office still in Cameron Indoor Stadium, maybe for some advice as well, just to pick the brain of one of those Hall of Famers that's sitting around in Durham. But no, like you guys said, it is a big loss. It stinks that it had to come to this. And I mean, you even wonder, like, what are the players thinking? Like, 'cause I'm sure they have tight relationships with him. And then all of a sudden, I mean, for this team, you're going to hope that, if I do math correctly, after North Carolina, there's 11 games left, I think.
Yeah.
Or 9 games left. However, the math is to win an ACC and NCAA tournament championships. Yeah. And he's just gone. He's just not going to be there. So, I think we're talking about more of game planning and the situation itself, but I also think it's going to take a little bit of a toll on the players as well, at least mentally.
All right, we'll see how it all comes together. Still, there's the transfer portal dynamic from the Duke perspective. What about the recruiting element to all of this, with Jay Lucas set to be the next head coach for Miami? So much more to discuss, and we'll continue our conversation after we take our first break here on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils. Locked On Blue Devils here today is brought to you by our friends at Nissan. The Armada Team of the Week is brought to you by those friends over at Nissan and the all-new 2025 Nissan Armada. Each week, our Locked On college basketball experts are picking one team that stands apart. From top-seeded stars to the unexpected upsets, these guys showcase the strength and sheer power needed to push their team forward. This week's Armada and clear-cut Team of the Week are the Houston Cougars. Since joining the Big 12 last season, the Cougars have gone combined 33-4 in conference games, winning the regular season by multiple games both years. There is no team in college basketball that's more capably embodying the rugged Armada than Kelvin Sampson's squad. Houston's tenacious defense leads the nation in fewest points allowed per game for the second straight season. It's clear that our team of the week is out here ready to conquer the road ahead with confidence, just like you can in the all-new Nissan Armada or any of Nissan's outstanding vehicles. Take the Nissan Armada, Rogue, or Pathfinder and go find your next big adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com. Nissan is a proud sponsor of Locked On Blue Devils. Okay, baby, the show moves on. JJ Jackson here with Kevin Connelly and Jordan Mann talking about the news of Jay Lucas set to head off and be the next head coach at Miami. I can't help but think about these recruits that Duke's been able to put together in Miami's press release announcing Jay Lucas as the head coach. The two things that they highlighted were, one, his defensive coaching abilities and his impact out there on the recruiting trail. When you look at the class that Duke is set to bring in, are you worried at all, Jordan? Like, what should Duke fans be thinking about? We know those Boozer twins from Miami, a lot of ties to the school. What's the kind of take here?
Yeah, I don't think the Boozer twins are something that I'm worried about. Like, I think they're committed to Duke. Like I said previously on one of your episodes, that look, Cam Boozer can just look and see what Cooper Flagg's done and what that personal brand has done for Cooper Flagg being the best player at Duke, and it's elevated him to make even more money in the league based off his branding alone. So he would not leave the big stage for that. But the one that I've alluded to before previously, and I'll keep alluding to, is Sheldon Henderson. I mean, that guy plays at Bel Air High School in Texas. That's where Jay Lucas went. Jay Lucas was his guy that was recruiting him. That's the relationship right there. And that would not shock me. And also, it's not a bad thing if that was to happen, because that would also give more minutes to year two Isaiah Evans, who has proven that he is more than capable to put up 16 points a game for Duke in this run that he's had. So I wouldn't be shocked if there was a guy to leave or to decommit or whatever. It would be Sheldon Henderson because of the Bel Air connection between him and Jay Lucas.
Yeah, he's got big Lucas family connections there on the EYBL circuit and so much more. Kevin, what's the take here on the recruiting dynamic?
Don't get me wrong. Jay Lucas is a really good recruiter, and he sells a lot of these kids on coming to Duke. But I think it should be mentioned that John Shire was just as good of a recruiter that Jay Lucas was when he was an associate head coach under Coach K. And I guess that kind of gets diminished a little bit because he's now the head coach and he's not spending as much time, at least out on the road, recruiting. Although, I mean, coaches really don't do that as much nowadays because all these kids just come into their office and say, how much can you give me? That's kind of what recruiting is nowadays. Like I was saying earlier, it's more than free agency. So it's certainly a loss. And I'll say this, like it's tough to view it in this light right now, but like this is a good thing. Like when other power conferences or power schools want your assistants to be their head coaches, like that's showing that like he's doing something good. The head coach is doing something good. The program is winning a lot. So deep down, it is a good thing that some of these assistant coaches are moving on to become head coaches. And I think for Jay Lucas, a lot of people thought he was destined to be a head coach, even going back to his time at Kentucky, right, under John Calipari and how great of a recruiter he was there. And then he leaves and comes to Duke. People didn't think he was probably going to be around that long in Durham just because he had all the makings of a head coach.
Yeah, I felt like he was on a fast track to get an opportunity like this. And I know that John Shire and him, very good friends. I think that Shire's handled this very well. I know they always kind of banter back and forth about some epic pickleball games that they have these now that they're kind of both past their playing days. I'd love to be kind of a fly on the wall to watch those competitors have at it. But I think to your point, it is important to remind people that, John Shire knows how to recruit still. And it is still Duke basketball at the end of the day. It was always going to be bigger than one person. Like from that element, we're going to be fine.
Yeah, I mean, look, Duke's brand is Duke's brand. Like they will never not be able to recruit. Shire proved it. That was like when Kay left and Shire took over. He was the fancy assistant coach that got all the guys, and then he became head coach. Like, well, there's a drop-off between Coach K and Shire, and he continued to
still getting the guys.
Yeah, and plus with the portal being what the portal is these days, I mean, Shire and his staff in general have done an outstanding job of filling needs with elite role players to where that's going to continue to happen no matter who's his assistant coaches, because he clearly has an eye for the talent and what he needs for certain positions and certain minutes, and he's knocked it out of the park this year utilizing the portal. So high school recruiting, not worried about. Like if Duke lost Sheldon Henderson, then they're going to find somebody else, and either via portal, which I would be a fan of, and then instead of high school, like Rick Pitino's already came out. Kevin, you'd know this because obviously St. John's, they're having a great year. He was like, we're not really recruiting any high schoolers. We're just waiting for the portal. And I know coaches that are the same way. Even my alma mater, it's just obviously lower level, but they're going straight D2 guys to fill in the void before they talk to high schoolers. And that's just how college basketball is. Why take a chance on outside of Duke here, just in the grand scheme of things, college basketball? Why would you take a chance on a 17, possibly 18-year-old when you can get a ready now 21-year-old and work with his game? It just makes a ton of sense. And I think John Shire will utilize that to his advantage of, again, trying to get older and more talent in the portal.
Anything to add there, Kevin?
I think you just look at it based off of his history. I mean, 2 years ago, they don't use the portal, and it's not the best team or the best season, although they still make a run. And then you have a lot of those freshmen leave, and then they didn't go after the top 5 ranked guys in terms of talent in the portal. They went after guys where they said, all right, this is what we need. We need a bulldog at guard. We need a defensive guy in the paint. And they kind of filled in the gaps around there. So I think there's more of that. And Jordan, what you said, Duke's recruiting philosophy is still going to be to get the top ranked freshmen, to get the Cooper Flaggs and the Cam Boozers, and they are going to be the stars of the team, but they're not going to be forced to have to do everything like Paolo Banchero had to do when he was at Duke, even though that was under Coach K, and he was kind of the star of the show. Yes, Cooper Flagg and Cam Boozer, they're going to be the stars of the show, but they're going to have role guys who are going to fill needs to what the team needs every single season.
A lot of chatter online about the portal, with Jay Lucas going to Miami and that being the biggest reason that you leave early before the season ends because you don't want to miss any of the steps there. And you want to not get out of the park when this is your first head coaching job. And a lot of people are already trying to connect the dots that maybe this is Caleb Foster. This is where he heads off to before he's even entered the portal, before this sophomore season has ever even gone to a close. I love Duke basketball fans. We love kind of putting the cart before the horse in so many ways. Is there a non-zero chance that Caleb Foster's playing for the Hurricanes next year?
I mean, sure. Like, there's a non-zero chance, but there's a non-zero chance. Like,
everything's on the table, you're telling me.
Yeah, everything's on the table. 13 players played against Wake Forest, and he was not one of them. That is a red flag for just if he's coming back to Duke in general. Like, if he left to go to Miami, in this, like I said, non-zero chance, if he did, is it really that big of a loss for Duke, or is Duke fans just upset because he's leaving to follow Jay Lucas? Like that, it's not like we're losing somebody that's been productive this season. It's been a guy that we've tried to get to be productive, but he's had a Jekyll and Hyde career. That's just how he's been. And Duke, to play at Duke, you need to be stable. You need to be productive. Look at Sion James this season. I mean, it just seems like the guy just is consistently at this level, and he's never altered to go lower. And that's where Duke needs at that position at guard. And I'm going on a tangent here, but if I had a gut feeling, I don't think he's coming back to Duke, but I'm not going to say he's going to go to follow Jay Lucas to Miami either.
Yeah, keep all the options open and see what's out there if that is kind of the play that you make. It's interesting. We'll see how all of it unfolds. We still have a championship to go and pursue this year. We still have an outright ACC championship on the line coming up this weekend. Guys, stay with me right here. We'll be back in just a moment to talk about that North Carolina game coming up in a moment here on Locked On Blue Devils. All right, here we are. We're talking all things Duke basketball, and we are talking today about the Locked On College Basketball Show. Now that the month of March is here, JJ Jackson with Kevin Connelly and Jordan Mann. Thank you so much for making Locked On Blue Devils your first listen today. For your second listen, make sure that you check out Locked On College Basketball with Isaac Shade and Andy Patton. March is here, so make sure that you're the most informed college basketball fan out there throughout all of the madness. Find Locked On College Basketball on YouTube or wherever it is that you listen to your podcasts. Let's keep the good times rolling here. We're talking all things Duke, and we've got a big game coming up on Saturday against North Carolina. You throw everything out the window when this game comes around. We know how the conversations typically go when it comes to this. But, Jordan, what's kind of the big factor for Duke to pick up a win in Chapel Hill come Saturday?
I mean, you got to kill that momentum early. UNC's coming off this momentum that they're playing their best ball of the season late in the season, and you can't let UNC get out to a hot start. It's in the Dean Dome. They're ready to rock and roll. Some of the fan base has second life, second wind in this season, and they're trying to talk it up to being, hey, this is the same as like 2022 against Mancaro and them, where we were bad and then we got hot and we can ruin Duke's last regular season game. You just got to kill all that noise early. You got to come out with a hot start, and then basically like they did against UNC the first time. Like Duke came out hot start, and Cooper Flagg took over in the first 5 minutes, and the rest was history for that game. But for Duke to really like win this game, I feel like they have to start out hot, not to win this game, but you know what I mean. Like they have to start out with a hot start if they don't want to flirt with, an upset alert.
Yeah, all week long, I've just been kind of thinking about 87-70, the final score. That's been in my head. We dominated them and that sort of thing. I really had kind of forgotten how quick of a start Cooper Flagg got out to. And, I've been thinking all week about this is when Malik Brown came back, and now there's a world where possibly he comes back again this time for this North Carolina game around. But, yeah, Cooper really set the tone early in that game. And going into a place like Chapel Hill, he's going to hear everything from boos to everything under the sun when it comes to trying to taunt an opposing player, especially in this type of rivalry. And looking at that player of the year race, it's hot right now between Cooper Flagg and Johni Broome. Johni Broome in the betting markets has taken over as the favorite after having single-digit scoring outings the last 2 games. That doesn't make much sense in the world. Kevin, I think this is another big, big moment for Cooper Flagg to show the world why he does deserve these awards and why he's the best player in the sport.
Yeah, 100% is. And I think there's a lot of more intrigue in this game just because North Carolina, it's one of their last ditch efforts to prove they belong in the NCAA tournament. And I know Jordan's saying that they're hot, and they are. They have won 6 games in a row, which credit to them. But 3 of those 6 games are against bottom 4 teams in the ACC. One is against the Florida State team who has a sub 500 record in the ACC, Virginia, who has a 500 record overall, and Virginia Tech, who has a losing record overall. So they're not playing the who's who of the ACC until they get to Duke here. And really the only who's who of the ACC is Clemson and Louisville. And JJ, we talked about this a little bit earlier in the week for how dominant Duke has been and for all the chatter about how terrible the ACC is, which I don't disagree with. The fact that Duke hasn't locked up the number 1 overall seed in the ACC tournament is kind of crazy, especially with an 18-1 record. I mean, you have Clemson and Louisville right there sitting behind them. If Duke slips up here in Chapel Hill and Clemson wins, Clemson's the number 1 seed in the ACC tournament. So I think that is crazy. So there's still a lot to play for Duke here in this game against Carolina.
Let's make it happen. Let's go find a way to win this one. Last year in the regular season finale against the Tar Heels, we all lived through the Cormac Ryan experience of that guy just absolutely gutting the Duke basketball team. I know Jalen Withers has really picked it up as of – I'm trying to throw out there the names for Duke fans that aren't RJ Davis kind of leading the way for this bunch, or Armando Bacot in years past, because it always feels like in this game, and even from the Duke perspective, there's still the Justin Robinson game in 2020 where that guy laid it on North Carolina. I know they weren't too thrilled about that. So a lot of times, Jordan, it's the unexpected heroes who shine brightest in this rivalry.
Yeah, Withers has played great lately, and Lubin's been solid for UNC also. And Kevin's right, in their 6-game win streak, they have not played the best of the best. But you can tell they're also playing more loose on the floor. Like ever since Hubert was announced his extension, it seems like the coaches are coaching loose, the players are playing loose. There's not a cloud over the team, and you can kind of see that. But yeah, Lubin is a guy also, and a guy that I think they're going to maybe not rely on, but they're going to call on early that we did not see really in the first half against Duke was Drake Powell. He didn't play much in the first half against Duke. I think he had 12 and 5, and all of them were in the second half, but the game was already made up. And I think he's going to get an early run, maybe even start against Duke, just to throw a wrinkle against Shire and Duke and Cooper Flagg. And I think he's a good player, but I think ultimately Duke handles business. But UNC's playing good ball, and I think they'll make an adjustment from the first matchup for sure.
All in all, Kevin, lots happened over these last 24 hours with Jay Lucas taking this Miami job and trying to figure out if Duke's going to be outright champions and a 1 seed likely for them in the NCAA tournament. Vibes are still good in the Duke basketball world, right? Are we sounding the alarms, or how are we feeling?
No, not sounding the alarms yet. I could see the alarms being sounded if Duke were to slip up in this game and maybe they don't have their best defensive performance, and then you're thinking, oh, did Jay Lucas have one foot out the door already? And how could this? How could this parlay into the ACC or NCAA tournament? So I don't think any alarms are being sounded yet. I think there could be some cause for concern if that is the case on Saturday night. But no, I mean, let's be honest. North Carolina is going to play this game like it's a championship level game because they know they need it. They need a resume boost. I think they're 1-10 or 1-8 in quad 1 games. So and a victory over Duke, which is a quad 1A game, would go a long way for them making the NCAA tournament. And then if they could pick off a couple other teams in the ACC tournament, the Tar Heels could lock up a bid in these next few days.
Fellas, we don't do these shows often enough. We got to have more of these round table type discussions with the two of you. Always great to get us together, talking all things Duke basketball. Jordan, tell me about all your work that you do and how people can support you.
Yeah, I got YouTube, JMan _ the podcast, Big J, Little J Show. You can find on Apple and Spotify. And then Twitter is JMan's Takes. And that's where you can find all my work.
I love it. Kevin, how about you?
I mean, I'm not nearly as busy as Jordan is, but come read us every day over at balldurham.com. We got great stuff on Duke basketball. All our writers are all on top of everything now in March. So over at balldurham.com, come read us every day.
All right. Great to see you guys. We'll do it again soon. Okay.
See you, buddy.
Appreciate it.
All right. That's Kevin Connelly and Jordan Mann joining us here on the program. And that brings us to a close here on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils. Please be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page, subscribe to the podcast feed, leave us a 5-star rating and written review. Coming up tomorrow, it is a crossover Friday. Really excited to be joined by Isaac Shade, once again, the host of Locked On Tar Heels. We're going to tell you everything you need to know ahead of Saturday's game. That's going to do it for today's show. As always, go Duke. I'll talk to you tomorrow. My name is JJ Jackson. Thank you and good day.